This is Jonathan Goretz, and I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to say. A few moments ago, I heard that Rahman al-Islam, there was another terrorist murder near Hebron. A man was gunned down in his car in front of his family with his family members being injured. Yesterday, a 13-year-old girl was murdered in cold blood, lying in her bed, the place that should be safe, at home. And the world is in an uproar. We don't know how to look at these events. We don't know how to view them. We feel we need to strike hard at the terrorists, and maybe we do. But to me, the way to approach it from a perspective that we can understand, a way that we can relate to and never forget HaKadosh Baruch Hu and God's role in the running of the world, I think makes it that much easier to cope with the things that we're going through. Rav Moshe Feinstein asked why it is that we say Baruch Dayan Ha'emes, blessed is the true judge when someone dies. If, as we know, everything that Hashem does is for good, we should be making the blessing Baruch HaTov HaMeitiv, Hashem who is good and does good. Rav Moshe explained that when Chazal established that bracha of Baruch Dayan Ha'emes, it was to fill the gap between the logic that we know that Hashem is in control of the world and what He does is for good, and the raw emotion that we feel as humans when tragedy strikes. We are not at the level of being able to accept everything that Hashem does with love and joy, because we're people. The Gemara famously talks of Rabbi Akiva and his colleagues who were walking past the Beis HaMikdash and the Makom HaMikdash after it had been destroyed, and they saw a fox coming out of it. And the rabbis cried and Rabbi Akiva laughed. And they asked him, "Why are you laughing?" He said, "Why are you crying?" They said, "We see this holy place that even the Kohen Gadol was only allowed to go into Yom Kippur, and now a fox goes through. How could we not cry?" And they said, "Why are you laughing?" He says, there was a prophecy that the Beis HaMikdash would be destroyed, and there was another prophecy that it was going to be rebuilt. When I saw the prophecy that foxes would run through the place where the Mikdash was, and that was fulfilled, I smiled, because I knew that the other prophecies, Od Yeshvu Zakenim V'Zakenos B'Rechovos Yerushalayim, that young and old, men and women will sit peacefully and safely in the streets of Yerushalayim with a rebuilt Beis HaMikdash. And they said, "You have comforted us." Someone pointed out to me a very striking thing that I'd like to share with you. We know that when Yosef was taken away from his family, sold to Egypt, the Torah tells us that there were merchants carrying spices. And Rashi explains that normally these merchants carried tar and other foul-smelling items. And yet, Hashem sent spices to comfort Yosef. What kind of a comfort is that? If someone's on the way to the electric chair and you give him a stretch limo, does that make it any better? The answer, of course, is that the fact that something different happened, it was a hint from Hashem to say, I am here. There is not chaos ruling over the world. I rule over the world. I'm in control. It's not that Hashem couldn't stop Yosef from being sold to Egypt. It was part of his divine plan, which was revealed decades later when Yosef was reunited with his family. And what was pointed out to me is that the girl who was murdered yesterday, Hal Yafa Hashem Yimkom Damo, may Hashem avenge her blood and punish all the evildoers who had part, whether they carried out the act or they encourage others to do so. The day of the month was the 24th, Chaf Dalet Sivan. If you follow the path or the pattern of Tehillim broken out over the course of a month, The chapters of Tehillim for the 24th day of the month begin with chapter 113, Kapitel Kuf Yud Gimel, and go on to Kuf Yud Ches. These are the chapters of Tehillim that we recite in Hallel. It's not a coincidence that this girl was killed on a day when the Tehillim represented her name. It was a way of Hashem saying, there is not chaos in the world. I am in control. And that's something we have to tell ourselves over and over and over again. If Hashem had not decreed it, it would not have happened. Now people say, how could God do this on an innocent child? That's not a question any of us are prepared to answer. God knows better than we how to run the world. The girl's middle name was Yafa, and Yafa is 95. The amount of psukim in yesterday's Tehillim was 85. It was missing Yud. This week we have the Parsha of Tzitzis, and someone pointed out to me this morning that the Tzitzis is missing a Yud. It should be Tzadi Yud Tov, and it's Tzadi Yud Tov. The two Yuds, or the two Yidden, as we would say, are missing. Perhaps this is to remind us that Hashem's name is when you have a Yud and you bring them together. When the Jewish people are united, unfortunately sorrow tends to unite us more than prosperity. We have to change that. We have to work on loving each other, accepting each other, not condemning each other. This is something I have to work on. I'm not saying anything about anyone else. Each of us knows what we have in our hearts. Eretz Yisrael right now looks like an Eretz Ocheles Yoshveha, a place that eats its inhabitants. People are dying, being murdered. This is what the Meraglim, the spies that went into Canaan, said. But what they did not think about was that the deaths that were taking place were happening for their benefit. Hashem said, I don't want the Canaanites to be busy watching the Jews. I want them to be busy with a funeral. Had they realized that these were large funerals, they would have recognized it wasn't a common occurrence. It was something unique, and that's why everybody participated. They have to think into it. The reason that Klal Yisrael cried is because they said there is physically no way for us to conquer the land. But they forgot that Hashem doesn't work on physical parameters. Hashem is in control. From the breath you take in the morning, to the water you drink, to the fact that you can move your muscles, everything is controlled by Hashem. If Hashem wanted to stop a terrorist, he could make them paralyzed. He could stop them in their tracks. He chose not to because there was a reason. Unfortunately, the crying that began on Tisha B'Av, when the spies came back with their report and the Jewish people cried and saying, the world is in chaos, we can't conquer this land, Hashem said, what about me? You're forgetting about me. I'm going to give you reasons to cry until you recognize that I am in control. That Baruch Dayan Ha'emes that you say with bitter tears should be slightly less bitter, because you understand that that is just filling in the gap between your natural emotions and the truth, which is Hashem is in control of everything. I don't know if anybody will see this message. I don't know if it will resonate with anyone. But if it does, and you've watched this, focus on the fact that Hashem is in control. Hashem loves us. Don't be angry with the Arabs because they chose to do it. Hashem will deal with them as he dealt with the Egyptians who chose to enslave us, even though it was a decree Hashem had already told Abraham years before. Let's work on ourselves, bringing back the unity, being those two Yidden coming together, joining forces, and then Hashem will have reason to put an end to all of our suffering and all of our tears, and will rebuild the Beis Hamikdash b'mehera v'yameinu.